Hi, guys. I'm here with Senator Bartolotta, and thank you for joining us, Senator. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I'm just looking forward to educate myself and also the CNX employees and just the viewers watching the vlog about how to become aware and the problems surrounding domestic violence as well.
Well, domestic violence hits very close to home for me because my mom was a victim. My sister tragically was a victim for many, many, many years until she escaped that situation. My aunt was a victim. Her kids were victims of domestic violence because it seems to be generational. And if it isn't stopped and corrected in one generation, it just continues because that's how kids learn to deal with relationships, family relationships. And it has to be addressed and it has to be corrected before things get out of hand, before people get hurt or worse, as was the case with Tierne Ewing. Tierne Ewing was a lovely woman who lived in my district. It was a national case, actually, because she had suffered horrible domestic abuse from her husband after having been kidnapped for 2 weeks. She finally got free. He was arrested, and you would think that that would be a wonderful end to a tragic story. But it wasn't the end because he was put in jail. But the prosecuting attorney, who was an assistant DA, begged the judge, begged him and pleaded him to revoke bail entirely, or at least make it high enough to keep him in there until he had his hearing. But the judge refused and gave this person an ankle monitor. It was an alcohol detection monitor. He wasn't arrested for DUI. He was arrested for nearly killing his wife and kidnapping her for 2 weeks. And he did horrific things to her during that 2 weeks. So he gets bail, $7,000 and some jewelry, and he's out on the street. A couple weeks go by, he cuts off the ankle monitor, kidnaps Tierne once again, takes her to a farm in a field somewhere, a barn in a field, and a passerby saw her jeans hanging out the window as a signal for help. When SWAT surrounded the barn, they heard screaming and yelling inside, could tell it was Tierne's voice saying, "You don't have to shoot me." They heard a gunshot, but because it was a .22 and he placed it here, it didn't kill her, and she was still screaming, and he decided to put it at her temple and ended her life, and then shot himself. So this is a horrific, tragic story that is all too common when it comes to domestic violence abusers being arrested. They're threatened with jail, but my bill, named in memory of Tierne's law, says that a magistrate may use a system to determine the risk factor. And is there a risk of reoffending or lethality? And they have to take into account testimony from people who know them, previous history, drug abuse, other violent crimes, and then determine with that risk assessment tool if that person should get bail or not. And if in this case they had used the risk assessment tool, I feel fairly certain that Tierne Ewing would be alive today. So that measure was put into her name, and it's called Tierne's Law, to hopefully prevent domestic violence abusers from becoming murderers. We have to do better. We have to do better. Domestic violence is on the rise because we suffered 2 years, almost 2 years really, of lockdowns and isolation and frustration and anxiety, people losing their livelihoods, so much stress because of COVID. So we're seeing an increase in domestic violence with partners, with children. To me, it's not Domestic Violence Awareness Month, it's domestic violence awareness every day. And we have to reach out to those that we think might be in a situation where they need help. And you can't be afraid to say something because those individuals feel shame and they're terrified often and they don't know what to do. So if people suspect that someone they know might be in a dangerous situation, find a way to reach out, let that person know that they have options. and we have resources.
So, is there anything that CNX or the employees inside the company or my viewers watching now can do to help if they don't know and direct victim?
Absolutely. There are resources out there that desperately need funding and donations, and there are homes for women in situations for domestic violence. A lot of women become homeless because that's their last resort. And I know, for example, right there in Washington County, there's the Washington City Mission, and they have a house just for homeless women and their children. And some of those instances are because of domestic violence, and they just have nothing. So volunteering, or especially making donations to organizations that help and have outreach. Domestic awareness counseling is available through these organizations. They can locate any domestic violence organization in anyone's county to reach out to them and make a call and say, how can I help? How can I donate? Even donating toiletries, shampoo and conditioner, things like that, that can be on hand at these places of escape and sanctuary is a huge step in the right direction. But just having programs in any business or organization that is part of your human resources training or package, to make sure that everybody in that organization knows, because men can be victims of domestic violence too. But everyone in any business, any employee anywhere should know and have on hand, posted somewhere, resources available, phone numbers to call, places to go in cases of emergency. So I recommend that anyone who is a business person or a manager of some sort get some of that information, print it out from online, post it in the break room, and just make sure that those numbers are available and the resources are known by your employees. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. It's important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For taking the time out your day to answer my questions.
Yeah.
It was nice meeting you as well.